Nation, what is going on? It is your boy David from Top Bunk Sports, and I am here with another video for you guys. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to go not only into the West Coast road trip, as you guys see in the Jumbotron, but we are also going to be discussing a crazy day today. Now, for those of you that watched the game today, obviously we didn't get the win. We got swept in San Diego. That's the negative. But there's a lot of positive in today, guys. There's a lot of positives, yo. David Stearns heard the voices. David Stearns heard the criticism. David Stearns heard the negativity, and he did what he was supposed to do. Now, I'm going to get into all of that. I'm going to break down what happened. Most of you already know. But obviously, I'm giving you my viewpoints and all that. So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna discuss a lot of things. We're gonna have a great talk today. Because listen, guys, I'm hyped. I'm hyped. Like I said, I know we took a beating today. Well, for all 3 days, but there's a lot that came out on this beautiful Wednesday today. So we're gonna discuss it. But before we get into that, let's recap this West Coast road trip that this team is currently coming back from. That again started off good but ended bad. The Mets had a 6-game road trip in the Bay, in California, right? They started at the Bay in San Francisco and they swept the Giants, right? Mauricio had a breakout game. Lindor ended his 0 for 31 streak there. He ended it against the Anaheim Angels before obviously coming into San Francisco and doing what he did. But obviously game 1 was a big one because he got a home run there. So it looked like he was getting out of his funk. Excuse me. So game 1 they dominated, got an 8-1 win. They got consistent pitching. I think that was the most dominating that we've seen the Mets in a really long time, which is good to see because again we've been asking for consistency from this bullpen and from this team overall. So the fact that they were able to give you that in the first game, I think it's a huge deal. And you like to see that. You like to see that again. They had they had Clay Holmes go. Now, obviously, Clay Holmes pitched today, and it wasn't the best Clay Holmes that we saw. But when he did pitch in Game 1 against San Francisco, I had no complaints about him. Again, 5 innings, of course. Clay has had trouble going more than 5, and that's why the conversation with Clay has been, does he need to go in the bullpen? Is his time as a starter, even though it's his first year with the Mets as a starter, is his time as a starter done? What's going to happen, right? He went 5 innings, gave up 6 hits, only 1 run, 2 strikeouts, and 1 walk as well. And that had his ERA to 3.40. So again, not a bad performance from Clay. And he got the one thing that a lot of our pitchers don't, and that's run support. You had Brandon Nimmo go 2 for 5. You had Francisco Lindor go 3 for 5. You had Juan Soto go 2 for 5. Alonso obviously went 0 for 4, but hey, it is what it is. But those were your main guys in that offense in that game, excuse me. And they, again, like I said, got an 8-1 win on 10 hits. So that was good. Then you go into game 2. Game 2 felt like in the very beginning, it's going to be one of those games where, hey, maybe the Mets rallied at the end and maybe they either win it or they rally to tie it, and then San Francisco comes and takes the lead towards the end and probably wins by walk-off or probably gets the lead in the 8th inning or whatever. Wasn't necessarily the case. They were basically they had no runs up until the 6th inning, and the Lord and Savior himself, Mark Vientos, comes through. Now I say Lord and Savior because his name has been discussed in a lot of trade discussions. His name, or not even trade discussions itself. Just this was, I wouldn't say his name was heating up right then and there. A lot of people always, were wondering, hey, with Eugenio Suarez's name coming up in trade discussions, if the Mets go after Suarez, is Mark Vientos, should he move? And listen, a lot of Met fans, rightfully so, like this kid. They do, man. I mean, what he did last year, I personally don't think it was a fluke. I think the kid has it in him. I think the kid is good. Defensively, he's a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily say he's the best defensively at third base, nor would I say he is at first base. He's obviously played a little bit of first base, not as much as he's played third, but you got to go out there and you got to, give him a chance, right? He did something that this team needed within that turnaround. He provided a spark and he provided consistency going into the playoffs as well. And I think that was the best part of it, where you went into this off season and you're like, yo, I cannot wait. We were all saying, shout out to all my Met fans on Twitter that I'm in a group chat with. Shout out to those guys in Queens baseball that I fuck with, that I talk to on a regular. We were all saying, yo, we cannot wait for second half Mark Vientos, and we really haven't got it. He has struggled a lot. So for Mark Vientos to get that RBI double in the sixth inning to give us that 2-1 lead in game two, that was big. That was big because listen, it could have been Nimmo, it could have been, Lindor probably hitting another home run in game two. It could have been Juan Soto, could have been any of those guys, but it wasn't. It was Mark Vientos. So you like that. You like to see the fact that a guy that we know has so much potential that struggled a lot, he came through. And again, it was one of those games where, again, it could have went a whole different way. Could have went a whole different way for the Mets. The Mets probably would have been another whack offensive night. Pitching, again, keeping the Mets in it, but the offense not doing anything. And that 2-1 double would be all she wrote for the New York Mets. And another thing too, you look at the David Peterson. David Peterson pitched in that game, and he was, and again, to me, he was fantastic. He was fantastic, no complaints. I mean, I'll say one thing about David Peterson in that game. He gave up a lot of hits, right? He was in a couple jams, but he found ways to get out of it. A lot of swing and miss stuff. Trusting his pitches, not being able to fold a lot, and you got to commend the guy for that. He's been great all year with that, and I respect that. I respect about David Peterson because again, it's showing what he's been able to work on since he's came back from that hip injury. He's been a total different pitcher. I've mentioned this plenty of times in my videos. He's been a much different pitcher since coming back from that hip injury. So you like to see that. 6 innings, that saved the bullpen a lot. It gave up 8 hits and gave up only 1 run his entire start. Gave up 3 walks and 4K. So the strikeouts weren't as high as you would like it to be. Obviously, with the walks and the amount of hits that he gave up, right? But he was able to keep the Mets in. And I've always said with this pitching rotation, man, if you're a pitching rotation that can keep the Mets in it at all times, why not? Why not go ahead and give yourself credit, right? Even if you're a Met content creator, you give these guys credit for keeping the Mets in it. They could give up 10 hits, but if the game is in within reach and they've been able to keep their team in it, even with the offense not being or not doing their thing, I gotta give them credit. I gotta give him credit. So again, David Peterson was able to do his thing. He was able to pick up the victory. That's his seventh victory of the year, right? And the bullpen did what it needed to do. The bullpen didn't they did what they needed to do. Only gave up only 1 hit, uh, no runs, right? No runs, only actually no walks either, right? And one strike, well, 2 strikeouts from Reed Garrett and 1 strikeout from Edwin Diaz, who closed the game out. And then obviously you go into game three, where the Mets found themselves in a little bit of a tougher challenge against the Giants in that game. You were, I would say, Kodai Senga not having his best outing. I think that's been the question mark with Kodai Senga, him not being able to go deep as well. I mean, again, it's a little bit frustrating because he can give you more, but he gets killed with walks. That's the problem. That's the issue. And a lot of the times, if you pay attention to Kodai Senga's outings, he's always in a jam. Not all the time, right? We've seen him get through week innings 1, 2, 3. But there's a lot of times where he gets himself into jams, and it's frustrating because now it puts a longer strain on his pitch count. He's in a higher pitch count when he doesn't need to be because he's walking guys. He's giving up hits that he doesn't need to give up, and sometimes he gets killed by the home runs. So that's a big issue. That's a main big issue, right? So he gave up 2 home runs to Matt Chapman. The first one was to tie the game because if I am not mistaken, I believe the Mets grabbed a one nothing lead. Yes, Francisco Lindor brought in Francisco Alvarez from third base to put us on the board. Matt Chapman hit a solo home run to tie the game. Ronnie Mauricio, who was on fire this game, hit a double to give us the lead. Matt Chapman hit a 2-run homer to give the Giants a lead. It was 3-2 Giants. Mauricio tied the game with a home run, and then Juan Soto came right after came in his at bat, hit a opposite field home run to left field, and gave us a 4-3 lead. Brendan Nimmo got a double to extend the lead 5-3, and that would be all. That would be all she wrote. The Mets would win by that score. Edwin Diaz got the save again, and they would sweep the Giants. So everything is looking flat. Everything is looking great, right? They're coming into San Diego. We know San Diego plays us tough. You know, San Diego never gives us rolls over. They always got to play us tough, but we're feeling good. We sweep the Giants. We go into San Diego to San Diego. If we could take 2 out of 3, we'll be fine. We come in to home this weekend, take on the Giants again, take care of business. God had other plans for us. Go into the first game, we find ourselves down 1-0. I should say yes. I believe it was 1-0. Again, I'm trying. I have everything written down. We find ourselves down 1-0. We tie the game, and then once we tie the game, Mark Vientos, it's a grand slam in the top of the 5th inning. Now, like I said, Mark Vientos who's been discussed as of late within trades, within certain moves that the Mets should make to get better, and they think that since there's really no consistency from him and there's really not that much opportunity from him, maybe they should move him or whatever. Before this game happened, did that grand slam happen? There was a report out there that the White Sox were willing to trade Luis Robert Jr., who the Mets have been very actively pursuing, for Mark Vientos. Certain fans said, "I like it. It helps us within our issues at center field." Mark Vientos is only DHing. He's not getting that much playing time in terms of the field like that because Brett Baty, who is a better defender than him at third base, is getting that playing time on the field. Certain Met fans also didn't like that as well. There was a side that didn't like that because they still think that the Mark Vientos we saw last year is going to reemerge. Now, here's my thing on that before I get into the rest of this game. Mark Vientos has only shown us this side one time. At the end of the day, the Mets as an organization are trying to put this organization in a position to go out there and win right now. We cannot wait for Mark Vientos to try and reemerge and do what he did last year. We can't. You can't. If there's a package right now to help you out and Mark Vientos is involved, I'm doing that 100%. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm doing that 100% because Mark Vientos is not getting playing time on the field. Yeah, he's a DH, but here's my thing. He's not hitting as of right now. He's starting to heat up, but there's only so much you can do when that's all he's giving you. There's no telling that he's gonna continue his hot hitting that he's doing right now as we keep going. That's the problem. You only could take 1 year of what he did. Now I get it. People are gonna be like, "Yeah, what's up?" Well, if we don't trade him, maybe let's try to figure that out. The thing is, we're not in position. We're not in position right now to try to go and figure that out, and that's the problem. That's the issue with this whole situation. So with his name being involved in trade talks and stuff like that, He comes into this at bat with the bases loaded, and he hits an opposite field grand slam and gives us a 5-1 lead. Here's the problem: the Padres come right back in the bottom of the fifth and take a 6-5 lead, and that would be all she wrote up until the ninth inning when Ronnie Mauricio hits a solo shot to tie it in the top of the ninth. Ronnie Mauricio, who just went 4 for 4 in the last game against San Francisco to sweep them, hits a clutch solo shot to tie the game in the ninth inning. And I've said it on Twitter. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, I've said Ronnie Mauricio is untouchable. The upside on this kid is crazy. Then, obviously, here comes Gregory Soto. Gregory Soto comes in, completely loses the game. The Padres walk it off. They take the first game. Second game happens. The Padres score first. The Mets have bases loaded. Starling Marte comes in. It's a sac fly. The Mets are on the board. That would be all. Jose Butto comes in, gives up 3 runs. It's a 4-1 Padres lead. Mendoza keeps him in his second outing after he was able to get out the first outing. I don't know why Mendoza kept him in. There was no reason for Mendoza to keep him in again. And the Padres would go on to score three more runs, and they win by a score of 7-1. And then obviously today, the offense was dead. Yu Darvish came in and cooked. A guy who came in today with an ERA in the 900s, in the nines actually, I should say, in the nines, and cooked. He shoved like he always does against the Mets. The Padres would go and score 4 runs off of Clay Holmes, would score another run off of Reed Garrett, if I'm not mistaken, off a sac fly, and they would win by a score of 5-0, and they would sweep this. So that was basically your West Coast recap. As you see in the Jumbotron, the Mets had a twist and had a twist and turn in Cali against the Giants and the Padres. So the twist was that they were able to get the sweep, but the turn, it wasn't a good turn. They got swept by the Padres. So again, we were trying, us as Mets fans, and again, shout out to the Pope, shout out to Rube from Queens Baseball. He was holding a space as the game was unfolding. And we were really trying to clear our minds within this game because and we got some positivity as you know the game was going through, because right before the game started he had ended his pregame space. The game was about to start, and we ended up getting our first trade of the day. So I'm going to show you guys, again, most of you that are watching this already know, I'm going to share my screen, and you guys are going to see right here. Give me 1 second. Should be this one. No, should be. I have them all in different places. So excuse me, guys. Just want to make sure that everything is on. Oh, right here. Here we go. As you see right here, Mets trade for right-handed pitcher Tyler Rogers from the Giants. The Giants received Blake Tidwell, Drew Gilbert, and Jose Butto. Source Ken Rosenthal. That was literally as the Pope ended his space, within maybe 5 minutes after the space was ended, that trade comes out, and that's a big trade. That is a huge trade. That is a big trade for for the help that this bullpen needs. This bullpen needs a lot of sufficient arms, and you got one right there. The funny thing is, shout out to, like I said, I'm going to keep giving them credit because they deserve it. Last year, Tyler Rogers was one of the guys that we mentioned as a sufficient help for the pen last year. Again, the pen last year wasn't that bad, right? But he was a name that we're like, yo, if the Mets could get him, that's a big plus to this pen right now, right? When again at that time during the trade deadline, we didn't really know what the expectations were. It wasn't that clear like this one is. They got him now, and again, a lot of people were saying that it's an overpay, or whatever. Before I get into this next tweet, because this is a very important tweet, I want to show you guys his Baseball Savant page right now, and as you guys can see it, right, it's all red. It's all red. His fastball velo is at 83, so he doesn't really throw a hard fastball. But his average exit velocity is at 99. His chase percentage is at 79, which is great. His K percentage is at 36, so he doesn't really get a lot of strikeouts, right? But his 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 um his walk percentage is at 99. He doesn't give up a lot of walks. He doesn't give up a lot of hard hits. They barely touch the barrel on his pitches a lot of the time. And if you look, because he throws underarm and it's very, 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 very low. You can see where his two pitch usages right here, the sinker and the slider. He throws the sinker most of the time, and you see where it's at in the bottom of the strike zone compared to where his slider is at. But great stuff. Pitch run value at 95, fastball run value at 96. Oh man, this is really such an upgrade. And then if you look at his numbers again, right now he's 4-3 with a 1.80 ERA. He's pitched in 53 games. He's pitched in 50 innings. He's had 38 strikeouts with a WHIP of 0.86. That is amazing. So this is a huge upgrade for the New York Mets as they get one of the prolific arms from the Giants. For like I said, they got Blake Tidwell, Drew Gilbert, and Jose Budo. Three guys that, again, there really wasn't a significant plan or future for them in this organization. I want to go to a certain tweet. Shout out to the Mets insider Anthony DiComo that posted this thread that I think was very, very helpful and very telling in describing this trade for Tyler Rogers. And I just want to show it to you guys real quick. So let me get to that. Okay, right here. So as you guys see right here, he posted a thread. He said, "Why were the Mets willing to give up three notable pieces for a rental reliever in Tyler Rogers? A few reasons. From talking to various folks around the league, I gave him credit, and I said, beautiful thread by Ann here clarifying the Tyler Rogers trade and why we gave up a hefty price. But I screenshotted, right? I could go through the entire thread, but I screenshotted two major things that I think he put within this thread that really spoke about how I felt within the trade. And it again, it was very reasonable that he put that because there were a lot of Met fans that didn't like the fact that they gave up such a big package for a rental pitcher. So he goes for number two of the thread. He goes, although the Mets gave up three players, none have massive ceilings. The Giants could possibly stretch Budo back out into the future, which might enhance his future value. He does have 5 years of team control left, but his walk rate has held him back thus far in his career, which is true. The main problem for Jose Budo is the fact that he gives up a lot of walks and he puts himself in pressure situations, especially when he walks the leadoff hitter. That once you already know that he gives up a walk or a hit to the leadoff hitter in the inning, it's all over for Budo. You already know. The third thing in this thread that I thought was important right under it was that scouts see Gilbert as a tool-C player who could become a steady regular, but not likely more than that. There are durability concerns there. Tidwell, likewise, still must prove that he's a starter, not a reliever at the highest level. He hasn't done that yet. So, again, the Mets understanding that these three that we just spoke about, two being pitchers, and obviously one being a guy that plays the field. Drew Gilbert was always projected to come up this year, right? Especially with the issues that the Mets have in center field. Jeff McNeil playing center field, Tyrone Taylor being an everyday center fielder, but not being able to hit offensively. Everybody was wondering, is Drew Gilbert going to come up? Is Drew Gilbert ever going to get that chance? The problem is that David Stearns and the Mets never, from what we gather and what we see, the Mets were never looking at Drew Gilbert as a guy they want to give that opportunity to. And if you're looking at that kid, and I remember when we traded for him to Houston, when we traded Justin Verlander back to Houston, I remember how happy we were when we first got this kid in 2023. But it just never seemed like the organization was ready to give him that opportunity. And this trade right here, I think settles that. I think it puts a clear answer on that. Now he can go to San Francisco, where he can get that opportunity. San Francisco, if they're noticing that they're not making the playoffs, they obviously made a huge trade for Rafael Devers. Obviously, with Devers on the team, they're going to be able to start making moves in the off seasons as well to try to keep themselves in contention to make the playoffs. But as he continues to develop and develop and develop, who knows? Maybe he gets the call up within middle of August, middle of September. Maybe he gets the call up next year. Maybe he kills in spring training next year and gets the starting spot next year in center field. Who knows? But it's a better way for an organization to finally use him and put faith in him. It's the same thing with Tidwell. Tidwell was called up for a few spot starts, but they never looked at him as a quality arm because he was always up and down, right? And then when you look at Jose Butto was given an opportunity, but he struggled as a starter. But when they put him as a reliever, he found success. Last year they had him and the Daniel Nunez as the setup man. Butto will come in the seventh, Daniel Nunez will come into the eighth. The Daniel Nunez will come into the seventh, Jose Butto will come into the eighth. And there'll be times where they'll come into the sixth and they'll pitch 2 or 3 innings of relief. But they were key for that. This year is a whole different story. So they're probably looking at it from a standpoint of Butto, where it's like, listen, we want you to get your starting opportunity, but it's not going to be here. We don't feel that we don't feel like you could be a quality starter here. Now, that's just me trying to sum it up. I could be wrong. That's just me trying to sum it up and me trying to put things together. But they're looking at it from a standpoint of like, yo, we're interested in this guy, and you'll get that opportunity to start in San Francisco. So all 3 guys are getting valuable time in a different organization where they can properly come up and that front office can use them. So I think that's key. I think that's very, very, very big, not only for them, but it's big for us because we got a quality reliever that's been needed for so long. Now you don't have to use a non-high leverage guy in that situation. Now you have a high leverage guy that you can use to go into that situation. So I think that's very key. I think again, David Stearns knew what he was doing. He was cooking. I know a lot of my fans didn't like the package, but I think these 2 threads right here by Anthony DeComo sums it up on why this is a good trade. Now, of course, before we get into the next Mets trade that happened, I also want to talk about the fact that the Mets were in discussions, or not in discussions with the Twins, but they were looking into Juan Duran. And obviously, Juan Duran went to the Phillies, and they went to the Phillies for top 100 prospects from the Phillies. The Twins got Eduardo Taint, which was the Phillies number 4, but MLB's number 56 prospect, and right-handed Mick Abel, who was Phillies number 6 and MLB's number 92 prospects. Again, Juan Duran goes to the Phillies for those 2 guys right there. And when Ken Rosenthal and John Heyman posted that they were close to getting Duran, I said, there's no way that Painter was in that trade. The Phillies have been so high on Andrew Painter for so long that I was going to be shocked. I'm like, oh, at this point, they don't care. They don't care. The only organization that I know that does not care about their prospects like that they're willing to give out any of their top prospects just to grab a guy in his prime to keep winning are the Dodgers. That's the only organization that I know that is willing to do that. So I thought before it came out about the 2 prospects that they got in return, I was like, yo, the Phillies just gave away Painter. That's going to be fucking crazy if that's true. And they didn't. So I think it's a trade. I think it's a win for both teams because you were more higher on your number 1 prospect than obviously your number your number 4, right? And your number 6. I think you're still able to keep the number 1 guy that they obviously want to continue to build around when he gets up there and stuff like that. I think that's a win. And then on top of that, not only do the Twins get 2 good prospects, but they're able to build because there's no saying that the Minnesota Twins are going to try to still contend. Who knows? Maybe they might sell next year. depending on how good this team is. God only knows. God only knows. But the Phillies got Durant. They got the one closer that they needed. So I think it's a good trade for both teams. Obviously you gotta play the Mets, so this you gotta suffer with that. That's gonna be pretty interesting to note because now he's going against us. The Mets, a lot of Met fans, including Master Flip from Queens Baseball, wanted him. Definitely would have been a dangerous combo with Edwin Diaz and Juan Durant as your eighth and ninth guys. But but David Stern said, "Okay, y'all want to cook? Y'all want to cook? I got you." And this came out right as we were going into that trade, and we were cooking and everything, and everybody was talking about the Tyler Rogers trade. David Stearns cooked again. The Mets acquired Ryan Hazley from the St. Louis Cardinals for Jesus Baez, Nate Dome, and Frank Elcio. Right? Excuse me if I'm saying the last name wrong. I hate getting the names wrong, but I wouldn't know how to say I don't know how to say that last name. But this is huge. This is huge, guys. This kid is a stud, and man, this one right here, David Stearns cooked and knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't give up much. Obviously, Jesus Baez was in your top 10 prospect list. He was number 8. So you had to give to get, but we didn't know what was going to happen with Jesus. Obviously, he was in single A in Brooklyn, so you didn't know what the timeline was for him. You gave up another two. You gave up 2 pitching prospects for this stud right here. And let's look into his baseball savant page right here. Bam, all red, all red. Look at his chase percentage. Look at the velo on his fastball. He's thrown 102 before. He's reached it. But dude, just great stuff. He uses his slider most of the time. The movement on his slider is nasty. I've seen a couple highlights. You've seen the miles per hour on his fastball on 99. He's touched 100, like I said before. The curve is at 80. The cutter is at 93. This guy is a machine, and I can't wait to see what he brings to Citi Field. It is going to be fucking amazing. And again, I wanted to show you guys also the prospect rankings of the Mets so far before all the trades happened. You had Jet number 1, Jonathan at number 2, Nolan McLean at number 3, Carson Benj at number 4, Brandon Sprout at number 5, Jacob Ream at number 6, Ryan Clifford at number 7, Jesus Baez, who like I said got traded in that Ryan Hazley deal, was at number 8. This guy right here, I hope they don't move him. He's already at number 10 in your top 10 list, and that's fucking amazing. But this so far. Look, Nate Dome was in there, so he was number 14. So again, really didn't give up a lot. I wouldn't say. I would say if anybody's heard about this right here, you shouldn't be, because we didn't know what you were gonna get. Like I said, you didn't know what you were gonna get out of Jesus Baez. So I think that right there doesn't hurt the Mets. I think they fleeced the Cardinals. And I think at the end of the day, you just got yourself a dangerous combo within Tyler Rogers, Ryan Hazley, and Edwin Diaz. That's gonna be a fucking mission. And shout out to Matt Muse on X. He put the current Mets current bullpen. You got Stanek, Reed Garrett, Riley, Soto, Gregory Soto, Rogers, Hazley, and Edwin Diaz. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a dangerous duo, especially now because you take pressure off of these guys right here. Gregory Soto had one mishap in that first game against San Diego, but he's got great stuff. Brooks Raley has been great since he's came back from injury. But these guys right here, in Stanek and Reed Garrett, Carlos Mendoza has gone to a lot. He's given a lot to them. He's used them in high leverage situations. And we know a lot of the times, especially with Stanek, when Stanek's in a high leverage situations, especially when he gets into trouble, he struggles a lot and he crumbles. Garrett at times has done that. Not all the time. He's been solid for us. But now you take less pressure off of these two right here, who've been used in high leverage situations before, Rogers and Hazley, and Rogers and Hazley mostly. Now that they're here, you don't have to use these guys in high leverage situations, especially in the 8th inning. So that's key. That is very, 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 very key for the New York Mets. two complete beautiful trades that I love. I think, like I said, they had main focuses on getting a center fielder and adding arms to the bullpen, and today they have addressed that. Now with Ken Rosenthal also putting out there, and I have the trade here. Michael Marino is, I don't know if he's trustworthy because I've never really seen him post anything groundbreaking. But there is an article in the Athletic that Ken Rosenthal has posted when talking about Mason Miller and Duran. And I think I've been trying to get access to that article, but I haven't had a chance to. I think what Michael quoted here is from that article. Ken Rosenthal had reported earlier today, as you see at 328, that the Mets have interest, or they're looking into Mason Miller. Now that's another fucking arm, really, really good arm that the A's have. And if the Mets were to add to this bullpen already, yeah, I don't. Jesus Christ, that will be deadly at this point. And in quotes, like it says here, the New York Mets, whose farm system includes perhaps more elite young arms than the Yankees, are also a team in the mix. That's going to be fucking nuts. If they could get a deal tomorrow or maybe tonight, for all that matters, they could call Oakland and be like, "Listen, what do you want from Mason Miller?" If they say, "Yo, we want a hefty package," if the Oakland A's, if Sacramento, excuse me, keep saying Oakland, Sacramento A's say, "Yo, we'll give you Sevy. Maybe you give us a pitching prospect within your from 11 to 20." Let's actually, matter of fact, do I have? Let me see. Let me go back to the. Okay, let's look right here. I'm gonna show you guys. Let's see. Right-handed pitcher. And maybe if they take, listen, I could be wrong. They might, and I'm gonna say this again. They might want a Nolan McLean. Might want a Jonathan. Maybe if they, maybe. I know people are very high on these two, but maybe if they maybe they could take a Jonathan. Maybe they could take a Jonathan and Nolan McLean, and maybe they could give us back a Sevy. We'll take a Sevy, right? Sevy's shown that he could be successful here last year. I'll take a Sevy and a Mason Miller, right? Just to lower the package just a little bit, and we'll give them these two. Maybe that's too much. Maybe they go after that, or they could take somebody from 11 down to 20. You could take a Jonathan Santacucci. You could take Sanscucci. You could take let's see. You could take a Will Watson. Maybe if that's too low, couple pitching prospects right there from 11 to 20. Maybe that they could take if they're willing to grab. Who knows? The one guy that I will not put in is this kid right here, Carson Bench. I won't put him in there. I will not. But maybe if they're willing, if the Mets are willing to let these two go, maybe I'll do it because you got to win now. That's the only mentality that I have, that I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, yo, we got to win now. You got to win now. That's what it comes down to. But that tweet right there piques my interest only because that right there is like, yo, hold on, we just added two prolific arms to our pen. We're gonna add another one, and this kid's a closer. And he used to be a starter. That's another key factor. He used to be a fucking starter. So maybe you could try with maybe, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think he has like 4 years of control, 3-4 years of control in his contract. You can do so much with this kid. Maybe you turn him into a starter for you, a young starting arm. There's so much to do with that kid, but that would be key if the Mets could get him. I'm not saying they will, because I think right now what they're doing is, all right, we got our two strong arms for the pen, like we wanted. Now let's go get that center fielder, and I think that center fielder is going to be Luis Robert Jr. And that could add a Luis Angel Acuna Jr. into that trade, because the White Sox have also came out and said that they've been discussing a possible trade with the Mets to get Luis Angel Acuna Jr. So maybe Luis Roberts Jr. is on the come up to New York tomorrow. Who knows? But maybe David Stearns says, "Yo, I'm gonna cook one more time for the pen, and I'm gonna pull off a Mason Miller." If the Mets could get Mason Miller in this pen, oh my God, we're not to be fucked with. But we'll see. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, the trade deadline is tomorrow, ends at 6. We'll see what the fuck happens. Let's go, Mets. Listen, in terms of this team right now, pitching needs to be better. They have to be consistent. You're not gonna win games if this pitching staff can't go more than five. Thank God that they revamped the bullpen because at least they have some bullpen help to help them out. The offense has to be better. Ain't no way you telling me you could play like that in San Francisco, then you come here and it's a total shit show. Has to be better. My guys in Pete and Lindor, yo, y'all the leader of this team, man. You guys are leaders, Nemo as well. All three of y'all. You guys are leaders of this team, as well with Juan Soto. I need them four to step it up on a consistent basis and really cook. And again, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor just got out of his cold streak. Yeah, I get that, but I need to see more consistency from all four of them. I need to. There's no other way you're going to be able to win in the playoffs if the inconsistency offensively starts happening. But on the positive side, we got two young, dangerous arms for this pen. I can't wait. Yo, I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Just a recap on the West Coast trip and obviously the trades that have been happening. I appreciate y'all, and I will check you guys on the next video. Peace out, and let's go Mets.